they're working this hard to keep you from voting, to keep your vote from counting, then they must know something about that. They must be threatened by what it is that they believe you're gonna do in the ballot box. And we don't just roll over and surrender simply because people are putting up roadblocks to our ability to vote and to count in this process. The power really does exist in our arms, and the people in power don't want to let go of that very easily. And so they erect barriers to keep us from being able to participate. If we participate at our strength, then we get to determine the future of American politics, of politics in our own community, simply by getting out there and exercising the right to vote. In the 60s, it was dogs and water hoses and military and police presence keeping you from being able to vote if you were a person of color in the South in this country. Well, the truth is that the tactics have evolved over that period of time. It's not just what happens when you show up at the polling place, whether or not you're allowed to cast your ballot and have it be counted at the polling place. The truth is that voter disenfranchisement is much more insidious these days. It starts with the registration process and who is allowed to register. You could register to vote and send in your application to vote, and it never ever be processed and your name never make it onto the roll, and you're never informed by the state or the supervisors of election as to why your name never made it to the ballot. In this country, we have to reconceive of what it means to offer people the right to vote. I didn't get to win the race for governor, but I have to tell you, on the inside, I was overjoyed that the people of my state decided that they were going to be a forgiving people and that we were going to allow people to have second chances. I remember when people began registering in January 2019 after the passage of Amendment 4. You saw black men dressed in their finest in suits and ties going into the supervisor of elections office and registering to vote. They would say things like, "For the first time, I feel whole. For the first time, I feel recognized as a man." So when we think about returning the right to vote to people, it isn't just the exercise, the ability to go in and cast a ballot for somebody. It's about being seen. It's about having self-efficacy. It's about dignity. The passage of Amendment 4 meant the restoration of dignity to 1.4 million people in the state of Florida. And now all of that hangs in the balance, all because Republicans are being very desperate around how it is that they control and maintain power. The Republicans have already been successful as it relates to throwing, a kink in this process, because they've raised suspicion and doubt and sowed seeds of confusion so that people aren't sure whether or not they have the right to register to vote or not. And then there are the individuals who we believe are able to, as a result of Amendment 4, to get out there and register to vote, but they're terrified. And they're terrified because the legislature passed laws that said that if you complete a registration form and you affixed your name to the bottom, you sign that everything that is on this form is accurate and correct. And they later learned that you still owe fines, fees, or court costs, that you can be once again criminally prosecuted. Who wants to put themselves at risk of having to go back to the same system that they spent so many years trying to get out of? That's part of the lasting legacy of voter disenfranchisement, that the law may say one thing, but the application of the law says something completely different depending upon who's in power. The efforts to disenfranchise people are pernicious, and it's my hope, and through the work that we're doing at Forward Florida Action and the work that I committed myself to 2020 and beyond, is ensuring that every legally cast vote is counted. and that we bring down the barriers of entry to our democracy, making sure that regardless of where you come from, what your mother or father did for a profession, what side of town you grew up on, that you have the ability to get out there and exercise your right to vote, constitutional right to vote. And it's not true in so many communities all across this nation. And so that's the fight that we're in, the hard work of ensuring that democracy exists and is real for every single one of us. We deserve in this country to have a very clean, clear system of registration and engagement because the Constitution affords us that right.